Abandoned German Shepherd and her puppies found freezing by the highway until a stranger stepped in. She was lying there, almost invisible in the snow. It was the kind of night that made even the strongest shiver. Snow fell hard. An icy wind cut through the darkness like a knife. The road was quiet. No cars, no people, just silence and cold. But if anyone had looked closely, they might have seen something under that old rusty road sign. A shape, shivering, curled tightly into a ball. It was a German Shepherd, thin, weak, and covered in snow. Her body shook, but she refused to move, because under her were 4 tiny puppies, pressed close to her belly, trying to stay warm. She was their only blanket, their only hope. Her paws were bleeding. Her nose was frozen, but she held them close with every last bit of strength she had. No one saw her. No one knew she was there. And yet, in that cold and empty place, she was fighting for 4 lives, not just her own. She once had a name. She wasn't always like this, cold, scared, and alone. There was a time when she had a home, family, a little girl who laughed when she licked her face, a man who scratched behind her ears, a warm bed near the fireplace. She used to run across green grass. Her tail wagged with joy. She belonged. But then, something changed. Her belly started to grow. She was going to have puppies. And just like that, they didn't want her anymore. She didn't understand the car ride at first. She thought maybe it was a trip to the park. But then the door opened, and they pushed her out. She chased the car as it drove away, barking, confused, heartbroken. They never came back. She had been left to survive on her own, pregnant, lost, hungry. But even then, she didn't give up, because she had a reason to keep going. She gave birth on frozen ground. No shelter, no help, just her, the snow and the cold. One by one, her puppies came, tiny, fragile, shivering. She cleaned them, tucked them close, and wrapped her body around them. Her fur was wet, her legs numb, but she didn't care. All that mattered was them. Her body ached, her eyes burned. Every breath felt harder than the last. She hadn't eaten in days, but she kept licking her babies, kept warming them with the only heat she had, her own. She knew the cold could take them any moment, but she wouldn't let it. Not while she was still breathing. She stayed awake, even when her body begged to rest, even when everything hurt, because a mother doesn't give up, not when her children need her. And out there, in the distance, someone was driving. Someone who had no idea what was lying under that old road sign, waiting to be seen. Noah wasn't the kind of man who believed in miracles. He lived alone, worked quietly, and rarely spoke more than he needed to. Life had changed him, not all at once, but little by little. Years ago, when he was just a boy, he had a dog named Bear. They were inseparable. Bear slept at the foot of his bed, followed him everywhere, and seemed to understand him better than any human ever could. But one night, Bear got sick, and Noah didn't notice fast enough. By the time he realized something was wrong, it was too late. He never forgave himself. Since then, he kept people and animals at a distance. No more pets, no more attachments. Just work, coffee, and long, silent drives. That's exactly what he was doing that night. Driving through the storm, trying to clear his head, not expecting anything, until fate had other plans. The road was slippery. Snow hit his windshield in waves. He leaned forward, tired eyes staring into the white blur ahead. And then, something. Just for a second, a shape near the road. Not a branch, not a pile of snow. Something that moved. He slowed down. Probably just a fox, he muttered to himself. Keep going. But his hands didn't listen. His heart beat a little faster. That old familiar tug, the one he thought he'd buried with Bear, pulled at him. He hit the brakes. The car skidded slightly, tires crunching ice. He backed up slowly, headlights shining into the dark. And what he saw made his blood run cold. There, huddled beneath a rusted sign, was a German Shepherd, skin and bones, covered in snow, not moving, and under her, 4 tiny pups barely breathing. Noah, no, no, no. Noah rushed out into the snow, heart pounding. The wind bit into his skin, but he didn't care. He dropped to his knees beside them. The mother lifted her head, just barely. Her eyes met his. They were tired, full of pain, but not empty. She hadn't given up yet. Carefully, Noah opened his coat and began wrapping the puppies inside. One by one. They were cold, far too cold. One of them wasn't moving. "Come on, stay with me," he whispered, his voice shaking. He took off his scarf and wrapped it around the mother. She didn't fight. She just looked at him, like she understood. He picked them up, all of them, and ran back to his car, the snow soaking through his clothes. He turned the heater on full blast, his hands trembling on the wheel. He didn't know where the nearest vet was, but he was going to find it. He was going to save them, because this time he refused to be too late. The clinic doors swung open as Noah rushed inside, soaked to the bone, arms trembling under the weight of frozen fur and fading life. "Please," he gasped. "They need help." The nurse didn't ask questions. Within seconds, the mother dog and her pups were whisked away into the emergency room. Warm towels, heating pads, oxygen masks, the team moved quickly. But their faces told another story. The vet, a calm but serious woman named Dr. Lacey, returned after what felt like an eternity. Her voice was soft, but her words cut like ice. "They're in critical condition," she said. "The mother is severely underweight and dehydrated. Her organs are beginning to shut down." Noah's heart sank. "And the puppies?" Dr. Lacey hesitated. "They're premature. They haven't been feeding properly. Their body temperatures are dangerously low. They don't have the strength to nurse." Noah nodded slowly, staring at the exam room door like it might vanish if he looked away. "They might not survive the night," she said finally. But something in Noah's eyes changed in that moment. He refused to accept that. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The storm still howled outside. But inside that small clinic room, time stood still. Noah sat beside them, the mother lying on a heated mat, the pups in tiny blankets, tubes and monitors all around. He could have gone home. He could have waited for a phone call. But he didn't leave. He couldn't. As he watched the rise and fall of their fragile bodies, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. A second chance. Images of Bear, his childhood dog, flashed through his mind. That one night he didn't act fast enough. That one moment that haunted him ever since. He had promised himself to never care that deeply again, to never risk the heartbreak. But now, sitting beside this broken family, something in him cracked open. "I didn't save him," Noah whispered, gently placing his hand beside the mother's paw. "But I can save you." So he stayed. Hour after hour, through the darkest part of the night, he stayed. He hand-fed the pups with a small syringe, drop by drop. He warmed them against his chest when their temperatures dropped. He stroked the mother's head and whispered, "Don't give up. Not yet." He was no longer just a stranger who stopped. He was fighting for them. The clock ticked past 3 a.m. The storm had quieted, and the clinic had gone still. Noah had nearly drifted off in the chair when he felt the tiniest nudge against his arm. He opened his eyes. One of the puppies, the smallest one, was crawling toward him. Its eyes, barely open, blinked up at him. It was the first time any of them had moved on their own. Noah's heart leapt in his chest. "Hey there, little fighter," he whispered, voice cracking. He looked over at the mother. Her breathing was shallow, but then, slowly, she turned her head. She looked at Noah, really looked. Then, with weak effort, she lifted her nose and gently pressed it against his hand. A soft lick followed. Faint, but filled with meaning. That single touch said everything. "Thank you. Don't stop. We're still here." Tears welled in Noah's eyes, but he smiled. It was small. It was fragile. But it was hope. The next few weeks were quiet and sacred. Noah's life, once empty and mechanical, now had rhythm and purpose. Every morning began with gentle bottle feedings and warm towels fresh from the dryer. The clinic had allowed them to stay in a small recovery room, and Noah never left their side. The tiny whimpers of newborn pups were slowly replaced with soft barks and clumsy paw steps. Day by day, the puppies gained weight. Their eyes opened wider, and their wobbly legs began to explore. They nipped at each other, rolled around in their blanket fort, and fell asleep in warm little piles. The mother, now named Luna, watched them with proud, tired eyes. At first, she barely moved. Her body was still weak, and her spirit even more so. But then, one afternoon, as Noah walked in with a bowl of warm food, she lifted her head and did something she hadn't done since that night on the highway. She wagged her tail. It was slow, hesitant, but it was there. The flicker of a light that had nearly gone out, starting to burn again. Noah took things one step at a time. He sat beside Luna, letting her lean against his legs. He gently brushed her coat, once matted and dull, now slowly regaining its shine. He spoke to her in quiet tones, telling her stories, sometimes even reading aloud from old books just to fill the silence with warmth. Then came their first walk in the snow. Luna trembled at the door. Her paws hesitated at the edge of the porch, unsure of what awaited. But Noah waited patiently, holding the leash loosely, offering no pressure, just presence. Finally, she stepped forward. And with each walk after that, her confidence grew. Her ears perked up. She sniffed the wind, barked softly at birds, even gave chase to a stray snowflake once, like a puppy remembering joy. At night, she would curl up beside Noah's bed, her head resting on his slippers, her eyes watching him like he was the only thing in the world that made sense. And sometimes, when Noah couldn't sleep, she'd nuzzle his arm, a silent comforter for a man who had once shut the world out. Two broken hearts, slowly healing together. One day, Dr. Lacey posted a photo online. It was of Luna, lying peacefully with her pups snuggled around her, all of them sleeping soundly in a warm patch of sunlight. She captioned it simply, "Abandoned, frozen, almost lost forever. But today, they are safe, because someone cared enough to stop." The photo spread like wildfire. Messages poured in, people from town, nearby cities, even other states. They offered donations. Blankets, food, puppy pads, chew toys, collars. Children sent hand-drawn cards with hearts and paw prints. A local baker even brought in dog-safe treats shaped like little bones. People weren't just touched by Luna's survival. They were inspired by her will to live, her trust in a stranger, and Noah's quiet devotion. Suddenly, Luna wasn't just a rescue case. She was a symbol, a reminder that compassion still existed in the world, that no soul was too broken to be loved, that even on the coldest night, one person choosing to stop could change everything. Weeks turned into months. The pups were no longer fragile little bundles fighting for survival. They had grown into bright-eyed explorers, full of energy and mischief. They chased each other around the yard, tumbled over their food bowls, and barked at their reflections in puddles. Each had their own personality. One was bold and curious, another shy and sweet, another full of laughter in his eyes. But now it was time. The vet gave them a clean bill of health. They were strong enough to leave, to be adopted. And with that came the most difficult decision Noah had faced since the night he pulled over on that icy highway. He sat on the floor with the puppies swarming his lap, licking his hands, tugging at his sleeves. His heart ached. How could he let them go? He looked at Luna. Her eyes met his, wise, calm, understanding. And in that gaze he found his answer. He couldn't keep them all, but he could make sure they'd never suffer again. So he carefully vetted each adoption, met the families, visited their homes. He hugged the pups one by one as they left, whispering promises into their ears. He kept their favorite blankets, gave new owners their routines, their quirks, even nicknames. And he kept Luna, not because he needed her, but because they needed each other. Luna was no longer the trembling, starving creature found beneath a road sign. She had transformed. She now ran through snowy fields like she was born to fly, ears flapping, tail high, kicking up powder with every leap. Noah would throw sticks and she'd leap to catch them midair, bounding like a deer across the winter white. She played with neighborhood dogs, greeted children with gentle nudges, and dozed by the fireplace, finally knowing warmth was no longer temporary. Sometimes, in the quiet moments, she and Noah would sit together on the old porch. The sun would dip low, painting the sky in colors too beautiful for words. Luna would rest her head on his knee, her breath steady and calm. There was no need for words. She was safe. She was loved. She was home. One chilly evening, Noah opened his laptop and began to write. He poured out everything. The night he almost didn't stop. The fear in Luna's eyes. The way the pups clung to life. And how that one choice, that one moment of hesitation, had changed his life forever. He titled the post, "I almost didn't stop," and then he hit publish. Within hours, the story began to spread. People shared it with their families, their friends. Comments flooded in, from soldiers, teachers, students, single mothers, even other rescuers. Some wrote, "This made me pull over for a stray yesterday." Others said, "I cried reading this. Thank you for not giving up on them." Thousands of lives were touched. Not just Luna's or her pups, but people who had lost hope, who were reminded that kindness doesn't need to be grand, just chosen. Because sometimes, all it takes is one stop, one yes, one heart that chooses not to keep driving. And in that moment, 6 lives were saved. But maybe, just maybe, Noah's was the 7th. In life, we often rush through our days, caught up in our routines, our problems, and our own concerns. But there are moments when everything can change with one simple decision. Luna's story is a powerful reminder of something we too often forget. Never ignore a cry for help, even the silent ones. The world is filled with souls, both human and animal, who are overlooked, discarded, and abandoned. Yet, within every forgotten being is the possibility for change, for healing, and for love. Luna, once trembling and alone on the side of a cold, lonely highway, is now a symbol of resilience and the power of second chances. She proves that even those discarded by the world still deserve love. If Luna's story touched your heart, share it. You never know who might be the next person to stop and save a life. Because sometimes the ones who have nothing left to give end up giving us everything. By sharing Luna's journey, you might inspire someone to act when they would have otherwise turned away. You could help change a life just like Noah changed hers. So, whether it's a person or an animal, take a moment to look closer, to listen harder, and to care more deeply. Because the world doesn't need more indifference. It needs more stops, more compassion, more people who care enough to make a difference.